hey, you need to know about the skeletal system. So I figured I'd get a leg up on this lesson, try to be a little bit hip and maybe a little humorous, and start this lesson on the skeletal system. I am ashamed of myself. Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about the skeletal system. We're going to talk about 5 main functions. We're going to talk about 4 main parts of bone, and then we're going to talk about 4 basic types of joints that we have in the body. So number 1, this thing, our noggin, is going to be all about protecting our internal organs. Our rib cage does the exact same thing. So that's one of the functions, to protect our internal organs. Number 2 is that it gives us just strength and support, right? So this guy, he's what's going to give our arms strength and support. That's number 2. Number 3 is that it allows us to move. So this is where we see the joints in the bone structure, right? Hey, how's it going? The joints that are in here are what are going to allow our body to move around. So it gives us some structure, but it also allows us to move around. And then we can take a look at individual bones in this system and how they move as we talk about the 4 types of joints that allow the body to move. So if you remember the old song, head, shoulders, knees, and toes.
Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, knees and toes.
Which I sing all the time because I have a 2-year-old, but if we look at the head, on the back side of the head, we have 2 vertebrae that are going down through the spine. Now, I dropped them. So we take a look at the vertebrae on the back of the head. The top 2 are known as the atlas and the axis. And what they allow it to do, if you think of an atlas like a map or a globe that spins around, and an axis, which is the point that it axle or rotates around, that's what it's allowing the head to do, which is to pivot back and forth. And that's exactly what we see in this meme. Pivot joint and jealousy. We have our pivot joint, head, and now we have shoulder.
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
So if you look carefully at the shoulder, you notice that at the end of this bone, there is, this is called the humerus. It's not very funny, but there's a ball, and it fits into a socket created by your scapula, your clavicle, right? So they're making this socket in here, and that allows us for this omnidirectional movement that we see often from shoulders and also hips, which we can see down here, okay? So that would be head, shoulders. Now knees.
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
I wish I was this flexible, but no. So the knees are created when the femur, which is where my hand is, the tibia and the fibula come together, and then you have this little bone right here, your kneecap, known as the patella, and that forms what's called a hinge joint, okay? Just gonna kick. This forms a hinge joint. Now, if you can think of head, shoulders, knees, really there's a way to remember this is knees, elbows, knees, and phalanges. So our elbows are hinges, our knees are hinges, and then our phalanges, which are the toes at the end, and our fingers create a hinge joint as well out here on the end. So when your finger, if you were to do this, and please don't say red rum, you have a hinge joint here and here, but we don't have one here. That's a gliding joint. So head, pivot, shoulder, ball and socket. Elbows, knees, and phalanges make up our hinge joints, and then the last one is known as a gliding or sliding joint.
Head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes.
May I have this dance? No, but if you take a look at the hand, there are these little bones in here. Those are called carpals. And so these little carpals have to move around and shuffle out of the way. They glide a little bit forward and back out of the way. We have the same ones in our foot. You can see these are called tarsals. And so these tarsals and carpals are gliding joints that just move a little bit out of the way to create motion in the foot or the wrist. So in this particular case, we have a bone in the center called the talus, and it has to drop down in every time our foot flexes to make room. You might remember those little puzzles where you had to move the pieces around. Every time you shuffle the piece to the right, you move one down, you move one up. That's going to be the same concept about gliding out of the way to make room for something else. If we go back to the beginning, we said number one, protecting our internal organs, rib cage, right? Then it gives us strength and support. And then the third one is allow us to move. The last two are found inside of our bones. So inside of our long bones, known as our humerus, radius and ulna, our femur, our tibia and fibula, and most of the other bones have it too. But the largest amounts of marrow are found in the bone, and that's one of the parts. So we have marrow. At the end of a bone, we have spongy bone. In the middle of the bone, we have what's known as compact bone. Here it's quite dense. And then we also have a coating around the outside called an outer membrane. So four basic parts of a bone would be the outer membrane, the compact bone, spongy bone, and then marrow. Well, marrow provides us with the last two functions of our skeletal system. And that is that the marrow is a place where all of the blood is made in red marrow. White blood cells, red blood cells, they're inside of the bone. That's where our blood is going to be made. But yellow marrow is going to be a place where we can store things like fat and minerals, so energy and raw materials for building those blood cells or whatever else our body needs. So if you've ever been sick and somebody said, hey, you need to have some chicken noodle soup. Well, the way that they typically make broth for chicken noodle soup is they take the bones of the chicken, they break them and they boil them so that that marrow, which is inside of a bone, is going to be able to get out the fat, which is energy, and the minerals and vitamins and those basic building blocks of cells are going to be able to get out into the broth. So it's actually the broth that's supercharging your own immune system by taking those resources that the chicken had stored up over its life, putting them into the broth, and then sending them straight into your bloodstream. So those are the 5 basic functions of our skeletal system. Those are the 4 types of joints we have in the body, the 4 parts of any given bone. So I hope you found that helpful, maybe a little bit humorous. So, how's it going? You look at me. I'm talking to you. That's enough ribbing for today. Hey guys, I'm Brian with Ball Guy Sci, and we are here to help you kick some class, whether it's in ed tech or science or just teacher development and growth, maybe even tutorials for students. So as I said, kicksomeclass.com. Hey, we got 3 different types of videos coming out every week. We have Monday motivational quotes, we have full-on tech tutorials, and then we have these 60-second ed tech tips that I do on Fridays. I hope you check all those out. Hey, I've got a bone to pick with you. Sorry. Well, hey.